Okay, the following is a video over 0.4 notes, and these are algebraic expressions. I will be evaluating expressions. So the first thing we got to remember are the order of operations, and we call this PEMDAS. So P, E, M, D, A, and S. And PEMDAS means that we're doing parentheses first, parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, and then division, and then addition and subtraction. Okay, and this is the order in which we do things. Okay, so one easy way to remember this is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Hopefully you like your Aunt Sally, but if for some reason you don't, maybe you can think of it as please execute my dear Aunt Sally. That is illegal and could put you in jail. So please don't do that. But yeah, so that's what we got to work. That's what we got to. That's what we got to do. So let's take a look at example 1. Now, what it says here is they give you this algebraic expression. Evaluate this expression, okay? And an algebraic expression is just kind of adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing numbers and or variables, okay? X and Y are variables. So I'm going to evaluate this expression if we know that X is equal to 15 and Y is equal to -7. So I'm going to write this out, X minus 5 plus Y. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the substitution property, and I'm going to plug in 15 in for X and -7 for Y. Okay, and when I mean plug in and when I say substitute, instead of writing X, I'm going to write what X is equal to. So I'm going to, instead of writing X, I'm going to write 15. So I'm going to say 15 minus 5 and then plus Y. Well, what's Y equal to? Y is equal to -7. So I'm going to do plus -7. Now, we got to think about our order of operations here, because it said earlier that, we do PEMDAS. So P, E, M, D, A, S. It says that we're supposed to do addition and subtraction, but there's kind of a little quirk going on with this. If I have addition and subtraction, if those are the only two operations that I have left, then I'm going to do them in order, okay? And by order, I'm going to work from left to right. All right, so I'm first going to do 15 minus 5. 15 minus 5 gives me 10, plus -7. Now, if I add a negative, that's the same thing as subtracting. So 10 plus -7 is really just going to give me 3. Okay, 10 minus 7 is 3. And I've evaluated that. Now, I want you to notice something, guys. I do not have equal signs in between these. This is because these are not equations. This is an expression. An equation has equal signs. Expressions do not, okay? So please don't use equal signs on this. That's not mathematically correct. But in the end, I just want you to get the right answer. Okay, let's look at example 2. All right, let's look at this one first. Now, we want to evaluate each expression if k is equal to -2, n equals -4, and p is equal to 5. So I'm going to rewrite this, and I'm going to plug these values into my expression. Okay, I'm going to substitute them in. So I'm going to write 2, and there's nothing in between the 2 and the k. That means I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to put a multiplication symbol here by the little dot, and I'm going to write k. Okay, now instead of writing k, I'm going to write what k is equal to, and that's -2. Now, because I have a negative, I'm going to put that into parentheses. So 2 times -2 plus n. Well, n is -4. So instead of writing n, I'm going to write -4. So I'm going to put -4 here, and then divide that whole thing by p minus 3. Instead of writing p, I'm going to write 5. So I've got 5 minus 3. Now, one thing I need to consider here is that I have this whole thing up top in my numerator. This is just one big fraction, and I have a denominator. I'm going to put parentheses around this because I need to do the operations up in my numerator before I divide by my denominator, okay? So that's kind of tricky. If you've got these types of fractions, you want to do that first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 times -2, and a negative times a positive gives me a negative, so 2 times 2 is 4, and it's going to be negative. So I've got negative 4 plus negative 4, okay? And then I'm going to do 5 minus 3. Okay, so 5 minus 3. All right, so now I did my multiplication first. Now we can do our addition. So negative 4 plus negative 4, that gives me negative 8. And in my denominator, I've got 5 minus 3, which is 2. So now I have negative 8 divided by 2, which ends up just giving me negative 4. And that's my answer. Okay? Let's take a look at the next one. Part B. All right, I've got to substitute my values in. And let me rewrite this. And this is where you guys are going to get tripped up. This kind of happens all the time. Even my calculus students get tripped up on this. Okay, so I'm going to do negative 3 parentheses k squared. I'm going to take the value of k, which is negative 2. Now, because this is negative, I need to put that in parentheses. I've got to take negative 2, and then I'm going to square it. Plus 2 times n. Now, n was negative 4. I'm going to put that in parentheses, negative 4. So if you have a number and then parentheses another number, that means that you're multiplying them. Okay, so I kind of did that over here. You don't always have to write the dot. Most times I don't write the dot if I'm using parentheses. Okay, so let's do PEMDAS. Let me do my exponent first. So things inside the parentheses. So I've got the big parentheses. I'm going to do everything inside of the big parentheses first. But the first thing I've got to do is I've got to do my exponent. Okay, so I'm going to do negative 3 parentheses, negative 2 squared. So that's negative 2 times negative 2. Negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm going to get 2 times 2, which is 4. So I get 4, and then plus, I'm going to do this, 2 times negative 4, which gives me negative 8. Parentheses. So I need to do what's inside the parentheses first before I multiply by negative 3. You could also distribute the negative 3, so there's multiple ways of doing this. It just kind of depends on what you see and what you want to do. Okay, so I'm going to do what's inside the parentheses first. So I've got 4 plus negative 8. That's like 4 minus 8, which gives me negative 4. Okay, so now I've got negative 3 times negative 4. And so a negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 4 is 12, so I'm just going to get 12. Guys, again, I'm evaluating expressions. You don't see any equal signs in between these. I'm just going from one step to the next, and then just keep doing my order of operations. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at example 3. Oh, dear Lord, what are these things? These are absolute value symbols, okay? And absolute value symbols means that whatever operation I do inside the absolute value is going to be positive, okay? So let's rewrite our expression here, but let's substitute our values in. Let's plug in our numbers, okay? So I've got 3 times the absolute value of A. Instead of writing A, I'm going to write negative 2. So I've got negative 2 minus B. Instead of writing B, I'm going to write what B is equal to, which is negative 4. So I've got negative 4, okay, close my absolute value symbol, plus 2 times the absolute value of C minus 5. Well, C is equal to 3. So I'm going to plug in 3 for that, minus 5, okay? So now, let's kind of simplify this up a little bit. I'm subtracting a negative, so let me rewrite this. 3 times the absolute value of negative 2. Subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding, so plus 4. Okay, and then plus 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 5. Now, the absolute value, you can kind of think of that as a, like, parenthesis. So let's do the operations inside the absolute value and see what number we get. So I get 3 times the absolute value. Negative 2 plus 4 is the same thing as 4 minus 2, so that's just 2, so absolute value of 2. Plus, let me put my multiplication symbol here, plus 2 times 3 minus 5. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Okay, so here's where the absolute value comes in. All right, if I take 3 times the absolute value of 2, well, the absolute value of 2 is just 2. Okay, if it's already positive, we just keep that positive number. So now I've got this. I've got 3 times 2 plus 2 times the absolute value of negative 2. Now, the absolute value of negative 2, so anything that's inside my absolute value, we want to make positive. So this is going to become 2 times 2. All right, so now we just got order of operations. I've got multiplication and addition. I'm going to do the multiplication first. And so I've got 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 2 times 2, which is 4. 6 plus 4, you guessed it, folks, 10. All right, and that's our answer. So, you know, guys, a lot of this is just plugging your numbers in and then using order of operations, which you are fairly used to because you have all successfully passed Algebra 1. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it.